James. I'll be putting that link on Spotify.
What's that, mate? Oh, my song.
Jen.
Hey, chat.
Jamais.
Good to be here. Thanks to Tommy T for actually coming online and responding to the world. He didn't respond or look at any of the birthday messages from yesterday.
I will.
But he will, allegedly.
No, thank you so much. Are we actually recording yet?
Yeah, we're live, man.
We're live. You haven't done an intro though.
Yeah, we're just hanging out in the chat,
cool.
man. We're just doing the live stream thing.
Should I save my thank yous until after the intro, post-intro, so it makes podcast?
Yeah, I think that's probably a good
Quick
idea.
little thank you to everyone who's currently listening, though. All those live streamers.
Hello, chat. How are we?
Welcome, chat. Hopefully your audio is sounding good. Campy's microphone is plugged into the right thing this time.
Sorry about that. That was technical difficulties.
Classic Campy.
I'm going to get the live chat on YouTube so I can watch it.
Yeah, please do. Please do. Right, well, lads, if you're ready to go, I am ready to go. And we're all recording separate, aren't we?
Sure thing.
Yeah, I'm good.
Cool. All right, here we go then. Hello there, my name is James and welcome to another episode of Lakeside Drive's F1 podcast. In this episode, we celebrate Tommy T's 30th birthday and talk about Team Radio Podcast 2. And I'm joined by my friends and yours and the birthday boy himself, Tommy T. Happy birthday to you, mate.
Thanks, mate. Thanks, guys.
And Campy, of course, as well. Hello there, friend.
Hello, gentlemen. How are we?
Very good.
Tommy T is alive.
Oh,
which is unusual.
I made it.
We did.
Yes, I overwhelmed Tommy T as best as I could through every Lakeside Drive asset that I had, and with lots of text messages from myself, which he probably hasn't read yet, which is probably
definitely not. I will
at some point, and hopefully they'll bring you
left unread at least.
Yes.
Did you do anything, mate? Did you?
Yeah, I bloody had a massive bash. I went
bash in the gulag.
Had your own AFL party or NRL party.
Very, very low key with the people in my household.
Very good.
As only you can do right now. But that kind of suits me to a T because I'm a very low key guy.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Lockdown kind of suits me well for my birthday. We do it every time.
Welcome to the 30 Club. Definitely not. That's because we were supposed to be Singapore this weekend, and it would have
we were going to go.
It would have been your birthday weekend at Singapore, which would have been fantastic.
That would have been loose.
Yeah, been an interesting time. 2022. Watch out. But hey, a big thank you to you for joining us. If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook or Twitch, and thank you for listening to this podcast, of course. As well, if it is 1 o'clock in the morning your time as we live stream this. I know there's a couple of people that's the case for. Big shout out to our Discord server as well. Thank you for being there as always. And a massive thank you to you too if you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Honestly, we've had about 60 people in the last week and a half jump onto YouTube. So we're chasing down that 1,000 subscriber number very, very quickly now. And same for Instagram, we're almost at 600 people there. So a massive thank you to you if you follow us on any of those socials. As I've said many times, we are chasing the algorithm. It makes a big difference to us, especially to get this podcast in front of people who don't know about it yet. All right, lads. Well, this is almost an Ask Me Anything, but a team radio podcast, and we should probably get into the questions, shouldn't we? Campy, a first question goes to you. It's from Trent. He says, a Campy-related question. Tell us a bit about your music prowess. What styles and genres are you into? What bands or artists should be listening to if we're enjoying songs in the key of Campy?
Oh, just what I love, talking about myself some more. just love it. Tunes. Look, I'm a 90s kid at heart. Seattle grunge is probably the go-to. Big Oasis man. Sort of anything that sort of came out post 2005 for me is pretty average on the radio. Wolfpack, they're incredible. That's some of the newer stuff out. I'm just thinking, what have I got? Got my record player and my records over there. Frampton Comes Alive is on top. Excellent. Yeah, I'm a guitar man. I'm a 4/4 man, really. That's what I'm into. So
4/4 man.
yeah,
Love it.
just solid, nothing special. Yeah, just get me in the fields. So yeah, I've got, what do I run? My bass, I run a 5-string Stingray as my workhorse that I use to gig, and I've got a few P basses that I used to record with. Yeah. Got an Ampeg SVT classic head. I've got a fridge and a quad box 410s as well. So, yeah, that's about the music prowess.
Yeah, and it's very good music prowess, Campy.
Yeah.
I love your stuff.
I do. Yeah, I'm right into it. So I might chuck a link somewhere on Discord to a few tunes, and we should do some for James's too, because it's on Spotify and all, iTunes and all that sort of thing. But James got some music too, which is good.
It's certainly some music. That's true.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll chuck some links on if you really want to go down that track. But yeah, it's good fun. It's just a good hobby. So
Tommy T, what do you listen to?
Mate, what don't I listen to other than Campy stuff? Joking.
Oh, very good.
I'm a bit of everything. So at work, obviously, while we're roasting coffee, there's always music on. So we kind of challenge ourselves to have a daily theme sometimes.
Yep.
Sometimes it can be like, okay, we're doing movie scores today. The next day, we've had some weird ones, like food related song titles, and that was a very interesting one. But because we're listening to songs all day, we don't listen to the radio or anything, so it's always just Spotify. So whatever we can do to mix it up. But hip hop, bit of rock. I really listen to everything, to be honest. Like, there's not much I don't listen to.
It's always a good vibe coming into the roastery, man, because you just don't know what you're going to get.
What's on today?
Yeah,
exactly.
It is a big vibe. I'm with Campy on Wolfpack, though. I'll default go to Wolf, Corey Wong, Cody Fry, that kind of funky, jazzy, poppy kind of vibe. Big Jamie Cullum fan. And my favourite band since forever has been The Darkness. I've been to every.
It says a lot about you, right there.
Yes, it does. I'm not going to shy away from it, though. That's it's a big vibe for me. All right. Well, Mason asks the next question. Trent, thanks to you for that question. Mason asks, do they make some kind of mic pop filter that blocks grunting and snorting? I guess you would have found that by now if they did for Campy.
Scoured the world.
Campy's actually bought some gear. He bought it weeks ago. It still hasn't arrived, which is bizarre.
Ozpost, Australia's doing the shit at the moment, isn't it? What a bloody nightmare.
Yep.
Anyway.
So we do have some on the way, which will hopefully value add some editing time for me, which is good. Here's a great question.
It's not that bad. Bloody hell.
It's pretty bad. Tommy T, you can lead us with this one. This is a question from Mel. She asks, other than Daniel Ricciardo, which driver would you invite to dinner? She means picnic, of course.
Oh, yeah, obviously. A COVID picnic at the moment is all we're allowed to do with someone from one other household, I think it is. I can't keep up with how many different restrictions it is. I think you've got to be standing on one leg, to be honest, while you're having that picnic.
Classic.
Well, other than Daniel, who would I invite? I reckon Sebastian would be interesting. Off the grid for me. I don't think people would have picked that, but I would love to ask him about all the kind of inner workings at Red Bull at the time, his view on how Daniel was coming up, because he was obviously somewhat intimidated by him, and then his moves to Ferrari, and then I think he's a very interesting guy, Seb. And forget that he's the third most successful driver with wins. Like
who?
Yeah,
exactly.
We're very quick to put him in the bin as a Formula 1 community.
Very, very quick to forget that he's the third all time with wins. So he's got a lot of stories. I'm sure he'd be a very interesting picnic. Yes.
Campy, who do you pick?
Probably Alonso.
You've both taken both of my answers.
Suck it.
Really?
Suck it.
You
get for setting us up.
Yeah, you know what?
Yeah, you set us up with this whole podcast, Jim. So
why Alonso? Campy?
Now I have to talk about myself. I think Alonso came in, after the Senna era and the Prosts and all that, but he came in when Schumacher was at his peak, and then 3 years in he went to Renault and knocked him off the pedestal. And I just think that 05 and 06, those 2 years, he was just that Renault was incredible. So I think the story of the tale of those 2 years Would just be super interesting to get his perspective on.
Mm.
You know, he came from that old school era where it was really at the peak of driver and machine without a lot of the computer technologies that we see today. And, you know, he's moved from the peak of that era and he's seen it all, the progression through this new hybrid era and the driving styles. And, yeah, it'd be interesting to get his opinion on. He obviously loves the sport and he wouldn't be here if he didn't, but just how much the sport has changed just from a driving style and to where it's heading and where he sees it in the next 20 years. So.
Yeah, that's a good vibe. I would probably have Kimmy over because I reckon without cameras and kind of behind closed doors, he'd be a completely different beast. And
I thought you were going to say it would be completely just as boring as he is to the TV.
No, by all
he'd just have a
accounts-
nap.
By all accounts, like even Seb, like big fan of Kimmy behind closed doors. You know, he's got that dry sense of humor that I think would just make me laugh a hell of a lot. Well, there you go. That's
his like 5 best mates that he famously got onto the yacht at after his engine blew up in Monaco. They're the same 5 best mates that he bought. His entourage has been with him from the start. It's never really changed, and they all work for him now as well, I think. And I think one of them used to manage the old Ice One MXGP. Motorcycle team they had as well. So
yeah, there you go.
I think it'd be lads on tour and Kim's just funding everything.
OG lads on tour. Thank you, Mel, for your question. Harry from Sydney asks a pretty good question. I think we did a podcast on this last year, but our teams may have changed. If you guys could set up your own F1 team, who would you hire as team principal, drivers, and who would be the engine supplier? The catch is you can only choose one from each grid on the team, i.e. if you choose Red Bull driver, you can't have a Honda engine.
Love it. I'm ready to go.
All right, go on then,
Tommy.
Can you hear it? I'm going to go with Andreas.
Yep.
I'm going to go Max and Carlos, and I'm going to go with the Merc engine.
Ooh. Yeah, that's...
Beat me.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Andreas, I think he's one of the most underrated team principals. He has righted that ship, which was very quickly sinking when Alonso was talking about an F2 engine, or whatever he said at the time. That has turned around very quickly, with Zach, obviously, as well. I think Carlos is very underrated as a driver and just hasn't had the opportunity in the right machinery yet. He's showing a little bit of that in his first half of the season. We all know that I love Maximus Verstappen. He's bloody ridiculously good. And I think he's going to walk away with the championship now. And that Merc engine is pretty undeniable, you would have to say right now. Ferrari's no competition. The Renault is useless. Honda's really good. I really still think that Merc engine is a thing of beauty and has propelled them to however many championships since it came into existence.
All right.
Tell me I'm wrong.
It's actually a very solid team and it's very annoying. Campy.
Does it have to be like modern era?
I reckon let's keep it in. We're setting up our own F1 team now, so you know
from the current parts on the grid.
You could choose some F2 drivers too if you wanted.
Look, I would have gone straight to Flavio if I'm honest. Briatore. You know all these guys work in F1 because they're a bit dodgy, but they're a bit out there, and the ex-Force India guy, I can't remember his name. You know, you need a little bit of that mongrel and that little bit of element of, I'm going to bend the rules to suit ourselves here to get things done. So currently on the grid, I'm not sure who that would probably be. I just like him. He's just, when I make decisions, I'm a people person. I'm not necessarily about your intelligence or where you come from or what you've been. It's like you invest in personal relationships, right? And if you can get the personal relationships there, I think that over time trumps any of the significant, importance that you have outside of that. So I'd go Gunther. I just think he's a good guy. Engine supplier, you can't not say Merc. They're just too good. But if we're going back, I'd probably go the Renault from that 2005 to sort of 2014 era. No surprises. Driver. Whoa. It's a tough one. I'd go Kimmy. I'd have to go Kimmy. Because I think in that era, like exceptionally well. I think he got shafted by Ferrari when he was driving with Seb. Yeah, he was definitely the number 2 driver, and a lot of things went Seb's way. But yeah, I mean, Kimmy can get it done in all the right places. He's the last Ferrari F1 World Championship championship winner. I just like the guy too. Can you imagine Gunther and himself together?
So Mercedes, who's your second driver?
Second driver.
You can't choose anyone we've got a Mercedes engine currently.
Yeah, I can't choose Danny Rick, can I?
No, you can't.
That's why I nailed this.
Jeez, you know what the problem is? I think I've ragged on every driver on the grid.
There's no one left.
There's no one left. Let's go someone young. So let's go. Jeez, that kills me too.
You're doing well.
Italian Jesus.
Okay.
Hey.
Okay. I would have Toto, Oscar, Daniel, Honda. Questions.
You're a cheat.
No, I'm not.
Why?
Why?
Well, Oscar's like that writes itself. So why Toto?
Principle, for sure. In terms of writing the ship, in terms of planning everything, he's the OG of that. I agree, Andreas. I probably would have said Andreas, except you took him. So Toto was my second option.
Yeah.
Oscar DR, because hello. And Honda Power Unit, because I just, they've come leaps and bounds, haven't they, from their McLaren times, especially with that in the back of the Red Bull.
How do you think Toto would go with building that relationship with Honda? He'd be so angry with them, like flip-flopping in and out. He'd just rage.
I reckon he'd be fine. He's, as you say, he's the guy of relationships, right? He knows how to get things done. He just, luckily he owns the current engine manufacturing department. If it was any different, then he'd just act differently, I reckon. Yeah. Good question, Harry. Thanks for that. That was really, really good. All right. Dan from Brizzy asks, if Lakeside Drive went full Bernie and bought F1, what changes would we make to the sport? Regulations, cars, tracks, weekend structure, fan engagement, etc. Campy, I was going to start with you, but you look scared at the thought of all of
so
those things.
many options here.
He's ready.
Which is, I reckon you're ready to go, Campy. Come on, just give us the first thought in your mind. What are we doing?
I'd go like a single chassis for the whole grid, bit like F2 and F3, different engines. Single chassis be a big one. Minimum 2-stop, 3-stop, depending on the races. No reverse grid. Keep it how it is, like weekend wise. I think they run it exceptionally well. I'd go back to 90-minute sessions on Friday, just for more fan activity. There's so much you could do, isn't there? You kick China out of the, you get rid of the crap races. So China, I mean, Russia was really good last weekend. So other than that, it's been pretty boring few years. Concentrate probably on more European tracks and more tracks in the States. I think what they're doing that as well. No, none of this cost cutting. I'm not into that. What we want, I'll just say, if you're conserving tyres and you're not driving properly, so there should be like you should be able to put someone in the bin, right? You should be able to give them a time penalty for saving tyres and braking and coasting 200 metres into a corner.
Go below a certain delta, are you saying they should just get a penalty? There's a minimum lap speed.
There's no more penalties. There's only versions of in the bin. You're either half in the bin or totally in the bin.
Yeah. I'd want to see more engine failures too. A lot of that stuff. So. Just it
wouldn't be boring, that's for sure.
Get your engines
tame for Campy, to be honest.
No, but get your engines right, and then you can run them at a percentage. So, like, run them at 115% of
That's
what
not how percentage work, pal.
Well, it does work.
My birthday boy, just settle down over there.
It's like we have these qualifying modes that they can only run the engine in for 3 or 4 laps at a time, otherwise it burns it out. So, get these modes where you can run the engine at 107, 109% of their operating realms. So then you've got that added bonus of, hey, well, you actually need to push your engines to the absolute max to get the most out of the car as well.
Love that. Tommy T, what do you think?
I think smaller cars. I think the cars are getting so massive that the cars are too big. The tracks are the right size. I think it's the cars that have just got way too big. So if you could regulate like an actual width and length, it must be within. I reckon that'd do something.
Do you have an era that you're thinking of car size wise?
Oh, I think probably like 90s-ish. I think as soon as you got into the 2000s, they got pretty large. But yeah, I think you you just go back to whatever was fitting to those tracks, to be honest.
Yep.
I think the length is the biggest thing at the moment. They're so damn long. You'd also bring back real engines, Campy.
Yes.
Bring back V8s, V10s, V12s, whatever you want to do. If you want to come up with a 16.5 bloody cylinder, whatever, go for it. Put it in the back. Let's see how fast it goes.
Yeah.
Why are we telling people how much power they can produce? If you can produce more, you've got more money to do it without adding weight. That was the whole point of F1 back in the day, was you could see V8s competing with V12s and doing a good job, because it's about how you use that power, how the weight's distributed, all those kind of things. It brings back so much more jeopardy. And the last thing would be more street races. I think street circuits throw up a heap because the grip difference. I think it's really exciting to watch cars go through, like Baku, those kind of races where you're seeing city streets, you're seeing buildings, you're seeing different obstacles, and the spectacle of the fans watching from balconies and all those kind of things. I know the logistical nightmare of shutting down a city is tough, but this is one of the most expensive sports to kind of go and do in the world. So why the hell are we worried about shutting down a damn city? Let's shut it down for 3 weeks, or whatever it takes to set up, pack up, and then run the weekend. Let's do it. Let's do it in more places. Like, imagine like the outskirts of London, or like through Brooklyn or something would be incredible. Like, I don't think that would ever happen because that would be crazy. But why are we not trying to do more city kind of interesting things? It's really a shame, I think, that we don't have more of those, because it would just engage the fans so much more. When you're in Melbourne and you can hear those cars, well, back in the day, you can hear those cars from 25 kilometers around Albert Park. It was insane.
Yep. Good point.
Do we lose the halo too?
No, keep it for sure.
Keeping people alive, that's a dumb one.
Yeah, there's been so many examples of the halo actually working in the last
That's
2
a
years.
weird stance, Campy.
No, we need more deaths. Classic Campy.
I like my F1 with a bit of death.
Sorry,
back in the
Campy.
day.
Are we holding you up from going to that protest at the War Memorial? The only other thing that I would do is, from a fan engagement point of view, have a single world feed which does not have British commentators. So I would get rid of, you can have Sky F1, whatever else, but I wouldn't have exclusive contracts for like Fox Sports, ESPN, whatever worldwide. It would be, you have the world feed, exactly like MotoGP, that you have brilliant commentators who, doesn't matter what nationality they are, so long as they're really straight down the middle and enjoy themselves on the microphone. That would be the only thing, but otherwise I think that's all good. I didn't mind the car size of like the 2008, 2009 era, just to throw that in there. Thanks, Dan from Brizzy. That's a great question.
John Paul's got one related to that on the chat.
Yes, go.
What do you think of a full reverse grid for the sprint race and sprint championship separate to the main championship?
Like a second championship.
So I think that's like, so you have a sprint race every weekend and it's reverse grid from qualifying, so etc. Yep. And then you have a separate championship inside the main championship just for that sprint race.
But I don't think anyone would ever care about it enough, because the real championship's still the real championship. Do you know what I mean?
I think you'd find cars like the Williams holding other cars up again, because they'd be put towards the back and the flip side. And we've seen George do that. Whilst it's a good idea, I think we've got Formula 2 for that. Like, if you want to watch great championship in that respect, do that. Because you're right, like, no one cares enough about sprint races as it is at the moment.
Sprint races only work when you've got 3 or 4 cars up the front that are so much faster than everybody else. And we've definitely seen a drop off from that, particularly this year and more so in the second half of this year. Whereas it would have been a really good idea 2 or 3 years ago when, Merck could storm through the field in 20 laps and possibly get wins and fight for stuff like that. But
I think if you could follow closer in a car, it'd be better.
And
that's the issue. You can't get close enough.
The problem is it's track dependent too. You get to a place like Monaco and it's, just be a procession. There's a procession the whole way around. So, I think it's a good idea. It might be a good idea, but I just can't see it working.
George from Sydney asks, knowing that Netflix were with McLaren at Monza, how do you think they will play the relationship/rivalry? Both are big draw cards, and one will have to be the bad guy between Lando Norris and Danny Rick. Tommy T, what do you think for Netflix?
If I'm putting my Netflix hat on and using that brain, they have seen nothing but love for Daniel Ricciardo in America, and with that audience, I think he'll be painted as the good guy coming into a new team, and Lando's being the standoffish one, not kind of welcoming him to the team and being a kind of bratty little kid is how they'll paint it. Is my guess.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's kind of like if I was a producer at Netflix, that's what I would have done.
Yeah,
I think that's the best, most engaging way to tell that story.
Daniel Ricciardo has become this massive personality in the US now, like thanks to Dax Shepard and, Smartless podcast. You've got like Will Arnett and Jason Bateman and Sean Hayes, who are all fangirling over him now as well. So that is due to Netflix. That's thanks to Netflix. And I think Drive to Survive, the first season's success, was a lot of a thanks to him, to his part in being the hero character that they ended up lifting up. So yeah, for that, absolutely, Lando will be the bad guy. But also because a lot of the time he has been. Let's not forget that, he's been pretty petulant with how he's dealt with the media and everything else. He has got a lot better, though, Campy. There was a video that F1 did out of Sochi, which was both of them interviewing each other. And the relationship is actually very amicable now. And you can see they're having a bit of banter. So I think now that the win has come and gone and moving on a little bit, that potentially Lando is realizing, the Danny Rick that you said that we all know was coming has arrived.
It'll be interesting how they talk about Danny Rick's first half of the season and how poor it will be. I think that will dictate the story of Monza. I think that'll have more of an indication on. But we've seen in the past they haven't talked about other drivers, so they might not have talked about McLaren all year and then got to Monza and skated over it for 5 minutes and gone in a direction they want. But yeah, look, I don't love their storytelling because they just don't get the facts right sometimes. I remember back to the Carlos Daniel episode from Spain in season 2, and it was just from Barcelona. It was like, that's not how this race went down at all.
Yeah.
You left out massive chunks of it. Yeah, it played out in the story, like for their story, but it was just completely factually horseshit.
Classic Netflix, right?
A lot like most media these days.
A lot like this podcast.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a great question, George. I think we kind of know the answer to that. And, the win for Daniel, I'm almost glad actually, sidebar, that they were there for that, because it was just it's an additional amount of content that he's going to have this absolute hero moment, isn't he?
For sure.
In this whole series, which is going to be really great. All right, Aaron from Sydney, settle the debate. Who's the most Danny Rick biased of the three of us? Tommy T? Who do you think?
I don't think it's me. I think it's probably James, to be honest.
Yeah, I'll go with James.
I'd go with me too.
That was
not really much of a debate, Aaron.
Sorry for no debate.
Good guy. DR, good guy. We'll fight whenever I inevitably get up somewhere through Formula One. We'll fight for his valor somewhere. I don't know.
Did you kick him out of your fantasy team yet?
Oh, yeah, he's been out for that whole year.
There you go.
Oh, very good. Yes, thank you, Aaron. Nick from Melbourne. Who is your favourite driver pairing, both on and off track? We're allowed to have different answers for each. Campy, who's your favourite driver pairing on track, and then who's your favourite off track?
Oh, it's so tough. Probably Lewis and Valtteri.
Mm-hmm.
On track. Off track, it's probably got to be. There's too many. There's too many drivers that I like, and then like Alonso, and then we got. I'm spewing. We got Kimi, and then it's like Italian Jesus, dud. We got Gasly and Tsunoda, both duds. And then I'm like George Russell, squid, with the favourite Canadian. Yeah, it's a real tough one. So it'd probably have to be Ferrari. Probably have to be Carlos.
That was my thought too.
Carlos.
And
Charles.
He's just a good guy, Carlos. Everyone likes him. I think that's going to be my off track for sure as well. I think that's a really interesting one. On track's tough. Yeah, I don't know. I think you're right. Mercedes has to be up
Campy's
there.
just reading the YouTube live chat, I think, at the same
Yeah.
time. Right? Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tommy T.
They're not bad on track either, to be honest, the Ferrari boys. I think if they had a...
I've just seen two.
Oh, now I want to know.
No, keep going. Keep going with your boring answer. We're obviously distracted.
It's not good enough. Yeah, I've got nothing.
Here you go. On track for me, Williams, because as much as GR is a little annoying, the fact when it looked like Nick was able to have a better result than him, he told the team very blatantly and honestly, whatever I need to do to support Nicky getting up into the points, let me know. And that was the most selfless, I think, driver act I've seen this season. Yeah. But I actually think off the grid... Yeah, I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? But Max and Sergio have had some really good filming opportunities in the Red Bull fold.
Red Bull do well with that stuff.
Yeah. And also, so do Yuki and Gasly, to be honest. As much as Yuki sucks on track, he's quite funny. He's quite funny on socials.
What about on track Alonso and Ocon? I think they've got an interesting dynamic. I think he's getting...
That
was a pretty selfless acted.
Ocon's French, so it's just...
It's 1.5 immediately in the bin.
See you later.
I tried.
No coming back. No coming back.
All right, tell me what's on YouTube.
Here's the follow-up question from James Allen. Thanks, James, or not really for this. Kiss, marry, kill with George, Albon, and Norris.
Kiss, marry,
Tommy.
Kill.
Kiss,
who was it?
marry,
George,
kill. George, Albon, and Norris. Who have we got?
George, Albon, and Norris. I'd marry Albon for sure.
He's a nice.
What was it? Kiss,
also, he just seems
kill?
like the sort of dude that would do all the chores for you too.
Let's adjust the questions to be slightly more appropriate and say kiss, marry, remove from Formula One and all motorsports together rather than kill. That's pretty full on. Not sure I'd want to kill any of them, but I
think I'd have a smooch with Lando and I'd say bye-bye to George.
Okay. What do you reckon, Campy?
Definitely kill George.
He hasn't walked it back.
Yeah, but I'd
run full steam ahead.
Look,
what's the surprise?
For the sake of the rivalry, I'll kill Norris. So get rid of that dud. So
and then what are you doing with George?
I'll give him a kiss. He's
take that out of context, please, James, and make that a drop.
You can't pay for this kind of content, honestly. James Allen, go to the top of the YouTube live chat. Well done. That's very funny.
All right, James, your turn.
I would marry Albon for sure. Yeah, kiss. George, and bye-bye Lando for the same reasons that Campy has just said. Because you can't fight with common sense, I guess. I don't know. Good. Very good. That made me laugh a lot. Thank you, James. All right. Andrew from Newcastle asks, why do you think that Oscar Piastri is not being talked about as a future F1 driver in the same way some others on the F2 grid are being talked about? Schwartzman, Joe, Porcher, etc. Does he face being a Nick De Vries style driver if he wins the championship this year? Campy, what do you think?
Oh, it's a very good point. I think he's correct. He's one of those guys that just goes under the radar, right? I mean, he's a cool, calm, and collected off the track. He's not. He reminds me a bit of Max personality-wise. He's just the way he handles himself on camera. Why do I think? I think he's stuck. F1's got a problem this year because we've had this second year. Or extra year of the turbo hybrid era without the change this year. The teams are actually giving drivers that extra year because they're all hanging out for the change of regulations. Which, I mean, I think if we had those new regs this year, we would have had a few more drivers leave, but it will probably happen at the end of next year. So I think that's probably why. I mean, the grid's locked up. I mean, we've seen a couple of changes, but no one's coming in other than Albon, but he's already in the system.
Yes.
And it looks like, I mean, that's really it. Who else is there? So that is the reason Oscar's not being talked about. And if he goes on to win this championship and then he sits on the sidelines next year, it could be, I mean, look what happened to Stoffel Van Dorn when he did that. Out of the car for a year with McLaren, came in, big signing, and nothing happened for the kid. I don't think that'll happen with Oscar. I think once he gets his chance, he'll get there. But yeah, yeah. I mean, we've got so much young talent, and we've spoken about this before. You know, by giving all these young guys a go so early, like your Strolls and your Verstappens, you missed all of these guys in Jolie and Palmer's era, like 5 or 6 years of worthy race winning, championship winning drivers never got their chance because F1 decided to go, we're not going 22, 23 proven. We're going to go back to that 18, 19. And I think the sport suffered a bit too. So.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, really, what's the best hope for him? I mean, we've spoken about him potentially just binning it for the next couple of races to stay in that F2 championship. But realistically, we've said this as well on the podcast, Campy. You know, Renault, Alpine need to pick their game up and be offering him some decent time in free practice in a Formula One car and being that reserve driver.
But seeing what Grosjean's gone and done in IndyCar this year actually makes a lot of sense to me that, IndyCar will be looking at a lot of these junior open wheelers outside of the States. I mean, they're always going to have like that pedigree of American races coming up through the American program stepping in, but they'll be looking at some of these young kids and saying, well, what can we do with them? Maybe we're not going to give them a full season, but maybe we'll just get them to drive on the actual racetracks and not the ovals, a bit like Grosjean's done this year. And he's had some cracking results, and he's got a top drive for next year,
which is so great.
And he's been performing really well. And his comments about the sport too, it's, hey, we get in. Are they as quick? No. Do they have the downforce strapped on around the corners? No. But you drive the wheels off these things. As it's like going back to the old school racing that we talk about of F1 in the era that we like, flat out for as long as the race is, as hard as you possibly can. And you can get away with moves in IndyCar that you don't get away with in F1, which, I mean, the Yanks do motorsport really well over there. So, I think it could be an option to go and do a couple of races over there just to keep that open wheeler experience.
Yeah, that's a great answer, mate. Well done. Thank you, Andrew, for your question. Jacob from Florida. Any American junior drivers that have a real chance of making F1, with Miami being added and Drive to Survive increasing in popularity in the States? Whoever gets signed would surely bring big sponsor money with them too. Tommy T, who do you think could be someone?
The only real kind of prospect is Logan Sargent that I've kind of seen, and I don't think he's that likely, to be honest.
No.
I think the junior driver program coming through the States is so focused on NASCAR and Indy, if anything, but it's so heavily on NASCAR. If you're driving anything there, it is NASCAR. I think that's just a product of F1 not having a real presence there until now. I think it will change, and I hope that it will, because that's way more interesting. We'll get some characters, we'll get some big American bravado and things like that, but we haven't seen anyone for a while now really show anything even close towards an F1 kind of pedigree. Really?
Yeah, what do you think, Campy?
Oh, well, we had what's his name a few years ago. Is it Alex Rossi? And he came in on the back of the year before Haas, and he got a couple of races. I think he got 3 or 4. And the Haas was, Gene Haas, the American team. Why wouldn't they have an American driver? And for whatever reason, they didn't go with him. Do I think we'll see Americans? Yeah, we will. Andretti's the other one that raced in F1 for a bit, but that never really transpired. I just think F1 as a product is so European based, and the feeder systems and the young talent, like just the way the sport's set up. I mean, you got your F4 championships, regionals, and then you got a Europe.
Yeah.
And those things at 13, 14, and 15, if you've got the money to do so. Yeah. Unfortunately, that's where F1 takes 99% or 100% of the drivers. You have to get to Europe. Do they look outside of that? I don't think they look outside of the European feeder system. Would it work? I mean, you could get a crossover, but I just can't see F1 teams doing it when the trajectory and the path is so clearly defined.
Well, there's only really one driver at the moment who races in that series that's even got some kind of close shot at coming across, and that's Pato O'Ward, because he's part of the McLaren fold.
Yeah.
And that's not likely, considering the talent that's coming up underneath the likes of Lando and especially F2, F3, if there's anyone in that McLaren, space, they're going to be wanting someone younger. They've already had your DR. Are they going to take a punt? Well, I mean, I think the bet with Zach was that he could have a free practice 1 session if he won an event with Indy. So who knows in that space? And it'll be interesting to see, obviously, that transition coming from IndyCar to Formula One. We know Grosjean spoke on the Beyond the Grid F1 podcast earlier this year about what it was like going the other direction. Less downforce, more power, and being more focused and sort of less margin for error. So I think you're just going to struggle to have someone coming across from that side. And as you said, Tommy T, Logan Sargent, as great as he was against Piastri last year, I mean, Piastri blitzed him, and here he is in Piastri in F2 blitzing everyone else in the field, people who have been in F2 for a long time, including Joe. So really,
and Sargent hasn't had the same year that he had last year either.
No, it's been terrible.
So
not good for him.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think I think for guys like Grosjean who have been in F1, I think IndyCar's the better prospect because anyone can win those things. I mean, there's still the dominant teams and the dominant manufacturers, but they race so often, and you're like, it's easy to break into that market and get your chance. I've watched it a hell of a lot more this year because of Grosjean, and I'm really getting into it. I think it's great. Excellent track.
Yeah.
For me, it's the second best racing formula in the world when it comes to single seaters. So, but who wants to? I mean, F1's the pinnacle and the dream. Why do you want to give up on your dream to go to an Indy car? I just can't see it happening.
Yeah, so I mean that'll be, that's the thing for Oscar, isn't it? This is a great follow-up question from Nick. What about having the reserve drivers mandated to run at least one race in each car in the team per season? Tommy T, what do you think about that?
I don't hate it. I think it's pretty interesting. It makes you actually think about who your reserve driver is. Also, stop the sharing reserve driver stuff, which I know is for logistic reasons, so that you don't have 10 drivers there all the time just twiddling their thumbs. But I think it's pretty interesting.
You keep the one reserve driver, and Nico Hülkenberg gets a drive in 7 different cars across the Mercedes powered grid.
Yes.
Just 7 consecutive races.
And he ends up beating someone else on championship points somehow.
Yeah. Look, I don't like mandating things. Yeah, there you go. No, I don't like mandates. I mean, if you get a drive, if you get to race in F1, like you've earned your spot, you got there. I think we should see more teams give drivers chances in FP1. I just think they should just do that more open, or even have a practice session at 6 weekends a year, an extra practice session for their junior drivers, so that these kids are getting chances to drive. I don't think racing or qualifying they should mandatory get it. Although if you've got a team like say Alpha, Romeo, I mean, why wouldn't you spare Italian Jesus? Well, you know what you're going to get from him for the rest of the year, right? They'll score some points. They can't beat Williams in the championship, so why not give a guy a drive, in a couple of races to test them out, see where they're at. But then again, there's contracts involved, and it just gets pretty technical giving up your race seat. Do we want to see Kimmy not race? He missed 2 already. It gets difficult. No mandates, but I mean, we need kids getting in cars more often than what they are.
Aaron from Sydney asks, how much better do you think Alpine would look and their future would look if Cyril was still there?
Better.
Campy? Yeah, better.
Oh, I really rated Cyril. I thought he was an excellent team principal. He took over that organisation when, they started back into F1. I mean, he wanted to be. He came out and said, "We want to win world championships and be fighting for world championships in the first 5 years." That didn't eventuate, but I think them getting Daniel Ricciardo and him talking about the trajectory they were on. I mean, they got to win this year. It's not how they wanted to win, but they still got the win. They got the podiums last year that they were talking about. I think they got 4 in the end, or 3. I can't remember. I think they had that trajectory and he was in the right spot. at the end of the day, Renault and the organised, I mean, you can't put it all on Cyril for on-track performance. I mean, I think he's a great head of an organisation. But it's interesting. I mean, we've heard Mr. Italiano talk about the culture within Renault, and it wasn't a winning culture. Yeah, sometimes, you know, some of the team members, because they just didn't know how to approach him. That's another big one too. So I don't think that's all Cyril, but I think they would have been in a better place than they are.
Tommy?
I'm taking the opposite. I don't know if I thought Cyril was the best for that. He was a very emotional guy, which does happen with some race directors we've seen. These race bosses. But I think the cooler head of someone like Marcin, he's been really good whenever he's been engaging with the Sky team. I think he's a really good kind of on the ground kind of leader, somewhat like an Andreas, but very kind of cool head. And I think that's what they kind of needed. They needed to just kind of grow up a little bit and demand more rather than just kind of like will and passionate, which is somewhat what Cyril's way of doing things was. The other thing is they've brought in a lot of like technical kind of people as well recently as well. So I still think it's a bit too quick to judge this new regime. I think you will see that this will net way better results than kind of Cyril just running the course with the team and the structures that he had. I think it's just a little bit backwards to go well forwards.
There was no denying at the beginning of this year, though, that they were an absolute mess. They, there's no one team principle. Oh, we're going to have this different structure where, everyone's in charge of something, and it was all very confusing, and no one really knew who, from the media, no one knew who to talk to about.
Who's
are you
your
in
boss,
charge
though?
or are you in charge? Like, who do we have to have a go at here? So I think they got that together as well. And I think you're right.
The guy just come off a MotoGP World Championship with the most underfunded, shittest organisation in the world in being Suzuki when it comes to motorsport. I mean, to have that on your resume, I mean, I think the guy's he's made of the right stuff, and I think that'll totally come across to what Alpine or Renault are trying to do. So.
Yeah, good question, Aaron. Thank you for that. Freya from Tassie / Cayman Islands, our favourite tax consultant, and apparently, allegedly,
she does my taxes. I'll tell you what, killer job.
And author of the best review ever, allegedly. There you go. Thank you, Freya. What do you think is the best way to experience a GP if you are there? I'm going to try and go to the Miami 2022 race, but haven't had the chance to get to a GP yet, except working in hospo in Melbourne. Can confirm packing catering boxes is not the answer to this question. Well, I can confirm that Campy experiencing the Porsche hospitality unit was probably the way to do it. Campy, what do you think?
Yeah, make sure you go with people. Don't go by yourself. Get a group. It's always better in a group. Make sure there's plenty of, responsibly, but heaps of beer flowing. That's always good. Look, I mean, that side of it's great too, but, being on the side of the track up on the hill around, 13 or 14, that's incredible too. Heaps of people around and gets pretty, not rowdy, but it gets pretty boisterous, and that's what you want to see, and that stuff's good too. Just soak up everything they've got to offer. As an event, the Melbourne Grand Prix is, as an event, it's one of the best three in the world because of everything that else is happening. You've got a great city, and there's always stuff happening in the city, which is super accessible too. So just make the most of the weekend. Don't just, some people just come for the tracks, but just get a group of friends and make a weekend of it. And
Tommy T, what do you think? My
recommendation would be to scope out during practices like really good vantage points and see where you can get some really good angles. Like the last Grand Prix we got to go to, and we found some really good spots to watch the cars moving through. You got to see a lot of different stuff, and then just post yourself up there during the race or during the qualifying session for 10, 15, 20 laps, and then move on and then go to your other spot and just really get lots of different angles and see the speed the cars are carrying, because that's the one thing that TV doesn't show. They look like they're not even moving on TV half the time. Like when you get to see how fast these cars are moving past you on a straight, so the exits of corners and the late braking and things. So I'm remembering, what was that section, James, towards the end? It's probably like, what, 14, 15, 16, after the long straight along Lakeside Drive. Good plug for, good name for the podcast.
The
actually.
podcast that everyone's watching.
Well,
At the end of Lakeside Drive, when they
changed
go
that
through
now.
that. Yeah. But that was a ripper to see Valtteri Bottas that year annihilating everyone else through that section to come so late on the brakes. And yeah. Like that was the spot, wasn't it? And then posting up, like Campy said, on the hill, finding other sections to find spots where moves might be done as well. So if you can find those kind of spots early through practice and qualifying, and just set yourself up and try and find them during the race.
Yeah, I mean, turn 3 is awesome too. Coming off the straight where Alonso had his crash, 3 and like those views are incredible. Even like 5 and 6. You know, that back end of the Melbourne GP circuit, if you can sneak into a spot where you're not, like, you're looking on an angle and you're not looking through the mesh of the bollards and the barriers, particularly where the TV guys and the stewards sit, there's always a little spot where you can get just clear viewing, and like the speeds are just phenomenal. Check out the whole track and go for a couple of days. You don't have to stay in the same place the whole time. Make sure you're going. Yeah, and find the good ones.
Jess, I think that answers your question as well. She's asking for the Melbourne GP specifically, help with tickets, grandstands, general admission, etc. First time attendee, and I'm overwhelmed. I think the answer to surmise what the boys are saying is grandstands can be good, but they do cost a lot of money. Often the general admission, especially around Melbourne, means that you can walk around the whole circuit, and there will be times where you get good ability to see certain parts of the track as you walk clockwise or anti-clockwise around the track, because it's very accessible. They have floating pontoon across the middle of the lake, so you can walk straight across the middle to go to that 9, 10, 11 section, which is very cool. But Freya, I think to answer your question about Miami, I mean, we obviously don't know what the track layout's going to be like for there, but certainly if you're willing to spend money to get into the pits, fantastic. But not everyone has 6 to 10 grand to drop on a ticket unless it's corporate hospitality. So I think that the vibe should be, you go with your friends, you try and make a great time of it, take some people who don't know the sport as well, try and educate them, or potentially, depending on what we do next year, try and get involved with us close to the circuit. Because after being in Melbourne a couple of times, whilst it's good there, I've also then left the circuit to go to the closest pub to watch the television coverage where the beer was cheaper and the coverage was better, because you just get overwhelmed sometimes just walking around the place. So
and that is the hardest thing about Grand Prix. We're so used to watching every minute details and what we follow during races that you just don't get that experience at the track. I mean, for me, I've done it 3 or 4 times, watched the race at the track, and but when push comes to shove, Friday's the best. Hours of on-track running. You get to see everything that you're going to see during a qualifying and race. The atmosphere is not as great, but then go and watch it at a pub, because then you can really watch it how you want to watch it, but still be involved too.
Ben from Tassie asks, Tommy T, have you got any coffee bean recommendations? My brew of choice these days is either a very milky cappuccino with a double shot, usually with a Merlot private blend, or Forza when I want something strong.
Well,
Tassie coffee roasters.
I would just recommend going local. So there's a few in. I think this is one time when Lonnie's actually got Hobart picked. I think there's better coffee in Lonnie. There's a couple. There's Ritual, there's Croplines, and there's Providence that come to mind, doing really good stuff. But there's also like really good coffee down in Hobart too. I think the best thing would be find local and go talk to them about your coffee needs, because they'll have the best recommendations. The people there will know exactly what they're talking about. Walk them through how you like to brew it, what you like to taste, and they'll give you the best recommendations. But then most coffee roasters in Australia will ship as well, so you can always go online.
Here comes the plug for his own roast.
And you can definitely go buy some coffee from a coffee roaster.
And coffee roaster.
Nah, if you want to buy the coffee that I roast, you can jump onto comfortcoffee.com.au, and there is a lot of coffee in there. So there's
too much coffee, too much choice. All the graphics also designed by you too. So you get the roasted coffee, and the label is also designed by you.
And the gifts.
You've got 3 shops now, don't you, Tommy?
We do. We've got Frankston, we've got Mornington, we've got South Yarra. So if you're in and around Victoria and they're in your 15Ks at the moment, you might be able to
see Tommy T for a live autograph on a coffee bean.
Yeah.
Hey.
You're going to get a real small autograph, mate. All right, this is a great question. Kelly from Brisbane. I know the drivers cop this one a lot, but do you guys have any pre-race race viewing rituals, especially preparing for the late races? Campy?
National anthem's always a good one.
That's just your ritual, is just tuning
I'll
in.
tell you what, I watched the Moto GP this morning. I think it started at 6 a.m.
You did.
Turned on about 5:45, got the Star Spangled Banner at 5:45. First thing on a Monday, I thought, geez, give me a rip a day. It turned out to be a dud, but no, not really. Just, I mean, these days it's just Discord, and then trying to stay active on Discord throughout the race is interesting at times because I just prefer to sit there and watch it, not talk to people and be angry, but angry and grumpy in my own little room by myself. But yeah, not really. No pre-race rituals.
Tommy T?
No, nothing for me. And like full disclosure, I'm struggling to get on the Discord because I just find it so overwhelming.
Yeah,
it's awesome, but yeah, sometimes I'm just like, I'm not watching the race. I'm just reading the Discord. So
yeah.
I need to find a way to balance it, I think.
I think I'm the host's representative when it comes to Discord. I'm
doing a great job. But to be honest, the Discord's got a life of its own, which is incredible that we've found a community that is just so engaged and doesn't even need us to exist. It's like when the machine gets sentient, it's going to just take over and kill us all.
I think it's worth talking about that, though, because genuinely, and also can I just say thank you for making it a welcome environment for everyone. It doesn't matter what gender, anything you are, because that's a big thing for F1 is it's just a lot of, look at the three of us. We're white, middle class, white guys, bloody, or young guys, I should say, watching and talking about Formula One. So for everyone,
not so young anymore.
We're in their 30s. Our target demographic is just going to grow older with us, I think.
It is.
But genuinely, thank you for that, because I've seen other Discord servers and I've jumped into the Formula One ones and I've been in there for maybe 3 or 4 minutes and gone, nah, this is just very toxic and not okay. So it is very much a self-driven thing. We've only got one other moderator and he's the MotoGP host on the other podcast. So to have, the 200 odd people that we've got in here, it's great. And I think you're right. And that's the same for me, is just log on, get myself set up. I'll have a couple of different screens running to either tweet or talk to different people. I have a WhatsApp group as well as the message group with you two, and then the Discord as well. It's it's interesting, but it's good. It's a good way to do. I do feel like I miss a lot of the action sometimes, though, when I'm too busy trying to find a stat or something to write some notes for a podcast. But that's just what it is, I suppose. Cool. All right, Jacob. Kelly, thanks for that question. Jacob asks, can we get a deep dive into these new regulations for the wheel gun buttons that they've introduced mid-season? Who needs to get put in the bin for these? I think the answer is yes, we can. And yes, we will. Not on this podcast, but Campy is going to go off and do some research, aren't you, Campy? And figure out what's going on.
I've done a bit. Look, it's just they're trying to make it safer for the people. The problem is we're not having people get injured in the pits. So why would you change the procedures anyway?
Lewis Hamilton's coming into.
I mean, we jump at shadows in F1 these days. We're so safety conscious. I mean, just ranting. I just think it's dumb. It's just dumb. But then again, it adds another element to the pit stops that these guys have got to get right, and they should get right. They get it right most of the time. It's just, unfortunately for us, it was Danny Rick. Had it been Lando, I'll be like, awesome. Just, more of a laugh. But, we can look at it. We'll talk about that in a podcast.
We'll talk about it on a pre-drinks.
Can we just quickly acknowledge Campy's other favourite saying at the moment, which is jump at shadows? Big fan of it.
Yes, I can.
He's dropping it in frequently, and I'm here for it.
You're right. I actually hadn't realised, but now that
he had a podcast, and I forgot to mention it at the time. He had 3 different jumping at shadows references. I was going to yell at him, and I just missed the moment.
Well, welcome. I
love it, Campy.
Welcome to the next moment. Big fan. Love that. Willie from Wagga asks, having just caught up on the F3 feature race, what are your thoughts on what's he doing? Prospect for next year in F2, and what do you think of Trident trying to manage their drivers through that last race? My view is they need to shut up and let them just go at it. Just remind them to make sure that they get a podium. What do you think, Campy?
I didn't watch it, so I can't comment. I know Tommy didn't watch it either, so I don't look. It's F3. They should managing teams. The championship was over at that point, so just let them race.
Yep.
Mick. he'll go up to F2. Love to get him in that Pramac seat.
Will Mick. He's that old. He's gone all the full circle and started again. Jack, get out.
Jack.
I mean, it's fantastic. Well done on winning so many MotoGP championships,
son.
Jack.
Daddy will take this from here.
It'd be good to get him in that Pramac seat. I think that's probably the number one seat on the grid. He's got some cash behind him too, so I don't think they're worrying about that. He's a Red Bull junior driver, so. But again, we saw him last year not performing in whatever team he was in. I can't remember. It was a dud team.
It was a dud team. Yep.
But this year in tried and he's been good. So but he may get into that Pramac in F2 and go, "Oh, this sucks." But I think we got to change the chassis next year in line with the new regs as well for F2 and F3. So that just changes the whole dynamic of how you drive these cars. Yeah, he'll be right. He'll be in F2. Hopefully, he goes on and does what Oscar's done this year.
Morgan asks, you guys are obviously car guys, obviously. Would love to hear a rundown of your personal cars, any projects on the go, daily drivers, etc.
Tommy
starting.
I'm not as embarrassed about my car as you should be, Campy. Yours is disgraceful.
Go on, Tommy. What have you got? What's your daily
I
driver?
have a Volkswagen Polo.
Oh, is it a GTI?
Negative.
Oh.
It is the comfort line though, so it's got a turbo. You can both shut up.
Oh, sick.
6-speed manual. 1.2 turbo.
6-speed. I have been driven around in that thing, and it can carry a lot of random junk your whole life in one car.
It's pretty much a delivery van, the way I use it, isn't it? It's always occupied with stuff. Nah, it's good fun. It goes really well, and it's not the end. There will be some stuff added to it eventually.
Campy?
I've just got Navara at the moment, just for work. A bit of a shame. I've just purchased a Merc M series off my old man, so that's good. That's the car to drive the girlfriend round on the weekend. But so that was a bit
classic.
That was a good one.
Vehicle.
But
girlfriend?
Oh, fiance, whatever she's called. She's awesome. No, I was telling the boys beforehand, I've just purchased a troop carrier. So got the write off from the accountant. He's like, "Yep, go and do your thing." So we've
Thanks,
could be waiting a fair while for it to arrive. So that'll be a little project for me. So that'll be my work car, and probably it'll be my hunting and shooting and camping car and fly fishing and all that sort of stuff. So I'm gonna go.
Come on,
no,
in the bin.
I think I'm gonna go the white roof and the mustard yellow like an old Defender look. So not that sandy top. I'm gonna go full just dirty as.
Yep.
And as Tommy said, I can wear my Aaron Williams jumpers around while I'm doing it.
That'll be the combo, won't it? That's what we all want.
Well, at least I won't look like what's that little roaster that works for you? Those little groms.
The tip rat.
The tip
Tristan.
rat.
Yeah, he's got a 60 series that's a hunk of junk.
Yeah, man.
Yes, it is.
He'll hate to hear that. No, he's like, it's got no rust. It's cleaner. Nah, mate. Come on.
It is.
Believe it or not,
my
first car was an 80 series Land Cruiser, and it was the best thing ever. But I was driving 2 hours to work to and from every day, and I couldn't afford to fuel the thing, so I had to sell it. It was the dumbest decision I've ever made, I think.
You're not going to get a new 300 series with a turbo, Campy? That's not you?
Nope.
They're not doing them with V8s anymore. How do you feel about that?
Well, that's why I got the trophy, because it's still going to have the V8 in it. It's all good. But yeah, it's a bit like there'll be a project. Look, Australia's got the biggest market in the world for aftermarket full drive and camping accessories. So there's you can look. What I do with 90% of my spare time is look at what I can do to my Troopies and 79s online. It just becomes. I mean, guys are spending $300,000 to get these things fully specced up. It is unbelievable. But I'm happy to do that before we move into the electrification of cars. I think this will be I'll be that dude that's still driving a V8 when everyone's electrified, and I'm going to have the stacks up the top, blow smoke over everyone, and, do my thing for the coal burning industry. So, well, at least I can do that, James, and not have to tell it, Extreme E line, here for the.
Don't have to toe the line, man.
Yeah, you do.
Nah, not at all.
So do you believe in? That's all right. We won't go there.
That's all right, mate. Sorry, I just lost the I think the transmission. Maybe the warmer was getting in the way of your broadcast. I had a '93 Toyota Celica SX that I was going to do up because that car just drove fantastic. I sold it yesterday. Just no time.
You didn't?
Yeah, it's gone.
You?
So because
let's keep it for a paddock car or something. Oh, you live in Sydney.
When I moved to Canberra, there'll be more paddocks around. I've had way too many cars, and I go through cars like it's going out of fashion. I'll probably get an 86 next, like an older one, like a first gen 86, just to upgrade for the Celica SX that I had. I won't really do a lot to it, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm not really that way inclined in terms of doing stuff projects wise, but I know I obviously love watching like Mighty Car Mods and those guys who do that kind of stuff. So I could if I wanted to, but I just suck at that kind of side of it. That's definitely Campy's bag. He's all over that in a good way. This is a good follow-up question, and this will be the last one. If you have written a question to us, don't worry, we will answer them on the next episode. But a final question from Craig. Dream car. What would you drive? Any car in the world, what would it be? Tommy T, give me your answer, please.
Oh, it's a tough one because there's so many different applications. But if I'm going with the dream car growing up, it was probably like a Chevy Chevelle, like late 60s. Like, yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
Talk to me. Let's do it.
That's incredible, actually. I can just, I'm visualizing that now, and I'm very happy with that picture, to be honest. Also with the music thing, that would tie in quite nicely. Campy, what would you get?
53 Chev pickup, like the big, big circular bonnet ones. That is the dream. I will definitely, one day in my life, I'll purchase one of those and probably rat rod it up, get the whole.
A bit Campy for a Cadillac guy. Just a big Cadillac.
Nah. I like big trucks. I just think
big
big
Boss
trucks.
Hog like horns on the front of it.
With RM Williams bloody mud flaps on the back.
I'll stick a deer on the front of it after I've shot one and drive through Melbourne, just honk on the horn. Isn't that what kids do these days?
Yeah, probably. I'd go brand new because I love this car, the McLaren Speedtail. I can't stop looking at it. Zach Brown mentioned that was the car that he dailies at the moment, and I was like, oh, what's that? Maybe a year ago, looking into it, I'm like, that is a throwback to like the old school looking supercars, and it's just a massive vibe. So that's probably what I would have.
The DBS too for me, like the DBS in that Bond film, that is the most beautiful looking car of all time, I think.
Yeah, Aston did a lot to the way cars looked coming through that DB7, didn't they? They changed the corner. That's for sure. All right. Well, look, thank you to you for asking your questions. Keithan, coming in, you can jump to our Discord server. There is a Team Radio podcast section there where you can ask your questions for us. As I said, if you've asked one, it's in my list. We just haven't got around to answering it yet. But here is the wrong answers only section of the show. What did Tommy T get for his birthday? Wrong answers only. Brad says, I
haven't looked yet.
A big tin of Blend 43 for inspiration. Mel said tickets to the 2021 Oz Grand Prix.
Bloody wish.
Your mum said a massive surprise party with thousands of friends and family.
Mum, what are you doing?
Ethan said many things. Here we go. A warning to shave his sideburns, jumper leads, pocket lint, a firm handshake from him, one of the baby Peregrine Falcons from 367 Collins Street in Melbourne, and Blend 43. Ashley says a bin. Andrew says Campy's beanie. Lachlan says George Russell's first points merchandise. Harry says his long hair back. Wallace says a mandarin, bottle of Gordon's Cocoa Pops, and a single V60 filter.
I got that this morning off him.
And Jed says a hairline.
Kick him out down,
Savage.
It's coming back, probably.
Tommy T, your 30th birthday. Happy birthday to you, mate. Look, thank you so much to you for watching. As we've said, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. It makes a big difference, the algorithm. We are getting so close to 1,000 subs. It's been awesome to see that growth recently. Jump on the Discord, I've said, and our Instagram, and you'll find us this weekend because the Turkish Grand Prix is coming up. We can potentially expect some interesting things from Daniel Ricciardo. What do you reckon, Campy? What do we think of DR for this weekend?
Yeah, he's on for the win. On for the win there. McLaren's in the game now.
Yes, they are.
Every weekend, they're the third best grid on the car, and
He's on.
No, they're in with a shot. So, yeah, DR for me.
What do you reckon, Tommy T?
Yeah, I reckon he's on for a podium.
Yeah, my man. I think McLaren are here and they've got some mongrel about them that they're not going to shrug off anytime soon. Well, it's going to be fantastic. Pre-Drinks podcast will be at 10:30 Australian Eastern Daylight Time now on Sunday morning, and our race review exactly the same time, 5:30 Australian Eastern Daylight Time on next Monday. Lads, a massive thank you to you. Thank you to you for watching, and we'll see you very, very soon.